In recent lessons, I showed how to use EJS within a NodeExpress application, and I showed how to do some basic operations in a Postgres database. In this lesson, I'll show how to use both of them together. The first thing I'd like to do is open up pgadmin as a graphical user interface to interacting with Postgres. Now, it takes a little while to open up, and it's actually starting up in another window on my computer right now. Only took a second, and here it is. So I'll enter in my pgadmin password, and then I'm going to expand the servers, and the one that should be installed by default is one called Postgres, and you need to remember the password that you used when you initially set up this database. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and create a new table, and I'm going to call this one Paradise Donut Demo. All right, so now I have it listed here, Paradise Donut Demo. And what I'd like to do as I think ahead is I would like to create a table in here that I can interact with from my Express application. Because this is a donut company, I'm going to add a table about donuts. So I come down to schemas, and I go down to tables, and there's nothing in there currently. I'm going to right click and do create table, and I'll call this table donut. And then on the next tab for columns, I'm going to add in 4 different columns in this database. The first one is going to be the unique identifier for my donut records. I'll call this donut ID, and the data type will be serial. So serial is essentially auto increment, meaning that every time I add a record to this table, I don't have to actually put it in. The computer is going to manage that for me. And this is going to be a required field, and it is going to be the unique identifier of each record that I put in. All right, other things I need. I'm going to need donut underscore name. And in Postgres, a variable character length field is called character varying, and this will be required. I'm going to add a price. And this one, unlike the first field, is going to be numeric. So I'll have to manually enter things in. And then lastly, I'll put in something else. I'll call this the type. So for like fancy donuts or regular donuts, because fancy donuts cost more than regular donuts. And I'll call this one also, or I'll characterize this also as character varying. And I'm going to assume that that is a required field as well. So I hit save, and it's instantly created. Now let's go ahead and add some records in here. So I'm going to right click on the table and then do view edit data. All right, here we go. Because this was set up as an auto increment or a serial column, I don't need to enter anything in here, but if I want to add records, I start then in the second column. So let me go ahead and create a number of donuts. This will take a few minutes. Chocolate will be one, and it's going to be a regular one. And how about all of my regular donuts will cost $1. So let's create a few more. Make up your own names if you'd like. I'll do lemon filled. This one's also going to be $1. And it's going to be regular. I'm going to do a bear claw. And this one's going to be a fancy donut, so it's going to cost $2. This one will be raspberry filled. Almost done. Just one more record after this one. $1. Regular. And then lastly, apple fritter. $2. That will also be a fancy one. Okay, now don't forget this last step, which I do from time to time when I'm teaching about how to do this. In Postgres, you have to go up here, and on this little icon, if you hover over it, it says Save Data Changes. If you don't do that, then all the data entry you just did will go away once you close this window, and you don't want that to happen. Also, if you're trying to retrieve information from this table, from your Express application, there's nothing there until you save this data to the database. I've done demos before where nothing came back and I wondered what was going on. Okay, I am done with that, so let's get that out of the way. Now comes the fun part. We're going to set up an Express application that interacts with a Postgres database. So first, open up a brand new project, do a new folder, and in here I'm going to initialize my project by doing npm init, and I'm going to be a little lazy and not give it any particular information. And because this is an Express application, I need to install some things, so let's bring down the modules. So npm install Express, and I'm going to be using EJS, so npm install EJS. Then I'm going to right click on here. I'm going to say new folder. I know because I'm using EJS, I'm going to need a views folder to hold my template HTML pages. And out here, let's get the project started with my main file for my application, which is going to be index.js. And then I'll type in the typical things to start up an Express application. So I'll say let Express equal require Express. So this brings in the module. And now I'm going to instantiate Express. Let app equal Express. And then I'm going to say app.set view engine EJS. Now it's going to know to look in that views folder for pages. I'm going to set up my first route. So I'll say app.get. This will be my default. Well, I won't do a default route. I'll actually put it on a different route. I'll call this one display donuts. So you'll have to type in my website URL + / the display donuts in order to see the contents of what we're about to create. And I need to pass in a little bit of extra information here. So request response. And response.render is how we display things that's a view in my views folder, and I'll have an EJS page that I'll call display donuts. All right, that's nicely terminated. And now I need to tell my application, my website, to start up, and I'll start it up on port 3000. All right, and I'm going to need to put something in this views folder. So let's go over to there and do a new file, and I'll do display donuts.ejs. And in there, I'll just do an exclamation point and hit return, and this thing fills it out for me. So I'll just say testing, because before I go too much farther, I want to make sure everything is working correctly. And so with that, let's go ahead and give it a shot. Node index.js. And let's bring up a web browser. Here's one right here. Localhost port 3000. Uh-oh. Wait, I know what I did wrong. I needed to put in a path. Okay, display donuts. So there's my route. And when I type it in completely, I get back that page which I was expecting. Fantastic. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to display my donut information within this EJS page. In order to do that, I have to pass in an array of donut information into this response.render method. In order to do that, I have to first connect to the database. So how do we connect to databases? Well, let's go out here to knex.js. This is a library that we can use to interact in a uniform way with lots of different types of databases. And so you could use the same syntax then for interacting with Postgres, MySQL, SQL Server, and Oracle, on and on. And so if I scroll down here a little bit, it tells me that one of the things I have to do is do npm install knex, and then I also have to do npm install and then the type of database that I'm using. So let's go ahead and do that first. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my server, and I'm going to do npm install, and I'll just do Postgres first. So that's PG for Postgres. All right, that was done fast. npm install knex. So it's like the word connect, but plural, connects. People always get cute with their technology names. Okay, so the libraries are now going to be sitting in Node modules ready for use. The next step is to create, in essence, a configuration string or set of configuration information for connecting to your database. And I'm going to go back over to here to look at some examples of that. So because I'm using Postgres, well, this is the general syntax right here as an example. If I go down a little bit, I can see an example for Postgres, and that's right here. And so let's go ahead and grab that code. And then I'm going to drop it in right here. Okay, I don't really need this version number, so I'll get rid of that. And then let's look over the other items. So I'm connecting to a Postgres database, good enough. Host, I could do that, or localhost, that's fine. The user that I'm going to be using, when I do my installation, it's Postgres. And for this video, and because this is not a production database, I did a password that I can show to you. And then the database that I created was called Paradise Donut Demo. Okay, I think I got everything right. One other thing that I should put on here that it didn't include for me is the default port 5432. And with that, I should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And everything looks good to me. Again, this, whether it's this or localhost, it'll do the same thing and point to my local computer. Okay, so this is my connection object. I call it a connection string. In other languages, oftentimes we just have a string with username and password and the IP address of the database server. But anyway, configuration information, it's all good. Okay, I can connect then to this database. The next thing I need to do is to retrieve information from my database table. And I'm going to do that with a knex select statement. All right, let's go back to here, and I'll just show you some examples of that. So I'm over here on the left side, and there's just here's some different representations of how this can be done. Knex.select, and it shows it this way. So it kind of just shows you that you can select some columns from a particular table. And if I come down here a little bit, I'm going to keep on going. There are just different examples of how you could do this. And I'm going to look for a word called then in here. So let me watch this. I'm going to do a search then. And let's find it in. Okay, so this isn't exactly some perfect syntax yet. I'll show you how I like to do it in a second. But the general idea is you can do your select statement saying, hey, I want a particular column, and then I'm going to get the results and put it into a block which I can do something with. So I don't know if that was terribly useful the way I explained that. I'm going to come down here a little further to this place that says interfaces promises. Okay, so this is a little bit more like I like to see it, where I say select everything from the table that I'm going to be using, meaning get all of the columns related to a particular table. This is optional right there. And then there's this then statement where we have an anonymous function. And I'm actually going to use the arrow syntax when I do this. So they're saying that after the query is completed, there's going to be an array of rows that are returned, and then you can take that array and do something with it. So I don't know if the examples on their official website are the greatest for me. I'll show you how I write it up. All right, so let's come back to here, and I'll say, I have to do this real slowly, knex.select. Now I'm going to leave this thing empty, and that's going to by default return everything. And I'm going to say from a table called donuts, and then I do this, then and I'm going to call the array that I get back from this operation results, and I can do whatever I want with it at that point. And it's a function, an anonymous function, so I need to do something with it. I'll put some, here's my block. So here's where I can then take this array and do anything that I want with it. And what I want to do is when I get a set of results, I'm going to display this page. And to this page, I'm going to pass in an object. So here's my curly braces, the name of the object, or well, I'm going to list within this object an attribute name that I'll be able to reference within the EJS page, and I'll call that array donuts. And then what I will put into that attribute will be results. Okay, so what this syntax does is it takes this array and it puts it into a new variable name that I will be able to reference from the EJS page. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and it'll do a little bit of reformatting here. And let's remember what this is right here. I've named it A Donuts. And I'm going to come over to here, and I'm going to put in some EJS here. So I'm going to jump right into embedded JavaScript, less than %, and let's just see if I received in this page that variable within an object. So I'll do console.log, and I'll just paste in the name of that thing that I'm expecting to receive, and then I'll hit save. All right, hopefully we don't have any interesting errors, and let's go ahead and do node index.js and start up our application. All right, I did that. Let's come back over to here, reload my page. Uh-oh, looks like we've got a problem. So let's go see what I've done wrong. Perhaps this is a good thing. All right, so it's going to tell me that I don't find donuts. Oh, and that's because I called my table donut. All right, so that's what I did wrong. You might, if you were following along, you might have remembered that. All right, so I start that up again, and I reload. There we go. And it found the page, and everything came up correctly. Now the console.log statement should print out all of the array information or the result information in the terminal. So I come back here, and I can tell by the green highlighting that it did print some stuff out. So there it all is. So there's the content of my array from this console.log statement. So notice the square bracket here. That means that this thing that was returned is actually an array, but within that array is a list of objects that are comma separated. And if I reference each object, I could use the dot notation to reference the attributes of it to read information to display in my page. Okay, so let's go ahead then and take advantage of the fact that this is an array of objects. And I'm going to go down here, and maybe I'll just do a little line break, a couple line breaks, and let's start making use of this array that exists here. So one of the things I can do is I can do a for loop. So I'll do for let I count equals 0, and I'm just going to print out the donut name over and over again on this page. While I count is less than donuts.length I count plus plus. And then I'm starting my block here. And what do I want to happen? Well, I want to jump back into HTML in essence and then complete my block down there. So again, with EJS, we can do things like loops and then have something in the middle of our loop happen over and over again, but it's not visibly within just strict JavaScript syntax. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put in something simple. I'll just do %equal, and so this is for displaying in a JavaScript variable directly out to the page, embed it right in the HTML, and I'll do a donuts sub I count, so it's going to reference one at a time each object, and then to access the attributes of the object we just do dot, and I'll say in this case donut underscore name, and then I'm going to put a line break after each donut that I've listed. Now when I hit save, my code formatter makes this a little ugly, but keep this in mind that this is how I prefer to have it laid out. So I hit save, and because this is an EJS page and I haven't modified the index.js page, I should be able to just go back to here, hit reload, and awesome! So this is super cool that we were able to pull information out of a database table and display it in an HTML page. Okay, let's go ahead and make this a little bit more detailed. So rather than just do that one field, let's go ahead and add in a bunch more just to demonstrate that you can do that. So I'll just temporarily adjust my formatting here, and I'm going to copy and paste this a number of times. So first I'm going to just put the donut ID here just to show that that can be done, and then I'm going to add in the other things. I'll do the price, and I'll do the type, and I think that's everything. And then after each donut there will be a line break. Maybe I'll do 2 line breaks so that it's clear what's going on, and then it's going to go back and print out the next. Oh, actually I already have it up. No, that's from something else. Okay, yeah, so after I print each donut to the page, I'll do a couple line breaks, and then it'll do it again and again and again. All right, so I'll hit save, and it reformats it in an ugly way, and then I come back here, I hit reload, and here we go. They're numbered, they're all on different rows, so we're in business. Things are fantastic right now. Okay, what if, though, I didn't want to return all of this information? Now, there's some things that are pretty ugly about what we've done if you think about a bigger production site. Like imagine if you were Facebook and your particular table had maybe millions or billions of records in it. You probably don't want to return every single thing. Or if you're in a site that's under a lot of traffic, again, maybe Facebook is an example, perhaps you don't want to return every single thing. This is returning every single column for a record that you're retrieving. If you're getting millions and millions of database queries per hour, you could probably save yourself a lot of CPU and data transfer that's going on, which in essence are going to end up slowing down your services. You could speed things up by only returning just the things that you actually need. So what if I just wanted to get back my donut name and my price? So I could update that, and this is the equivalent if I were to pull this up over here. If I were to go over to my donut table, and if I were to do a query tool, so in SQL we do select star from donut, something like that, and when we do that, it returns something from the table. And I could also just get a limited number of things to return. I could say donut name, comma, type, and it would just return 2 columns of information. And so what knex does is it essentially creates this SQL statement for you using these methods that exist there, and yeah, it creates that syntax that I just showed you, and then returns the result back to the page. Okay, so having updated that, let's go ahead and stop my server, and I'm going to come back over to here. And if I hit reload, I just get back 2 things. And also, if I come back to here, remember that I had this console statement that lists out all the contents of the array. Notice that the array now only holds 2 attributes for each object. So this is correctly getting back just the things that I want. I can filter this even further. Let me go back to SQL for a second and show you how you could even further reduce some of the things that get back. So if I go back here and I said give me everything, I can limit the rows that are returned by saying something like where, and I could do type equals fancy, and actually I need to put that in single quotes, and if I run that, notice I only got 2 rows back. So I could do a match on different things like where donut ID equals particular things, or I could do other types of matches that actually return multiple rows, whatever my need is. So let's go back and implement this same type of functionality in knex. So I come back over here, and I'm just going to return it back to everything. So give me back everything, but I'm going to add in a filter here. So I'll say where, and then this takes 2 arguments. So I'll say where type, that's the column. So the first thing I do is the column, and then the thing that I want to check against in that column. So anytime fancy shows up in type, I want to return that, but everything else should get ignored. So I'll stop that, and then I will also stop my server. I will restart it, and then let's go back over to my web page, hit reload, and now I only have 2 records. Similarly, if I come back here and I look at the console.log, the array also holds just 2 records. Okay, so we've made a lot of great progress in this lesson, and with this we're now prepared to move on to creating a full application where we would create data, display data, update the data, and delete the data. And so that will be the subject of the upcoming lessons.